Well, hello and welcome into another edition of 8Sports Nightcap here on WRSC Plus, Facebook, YouTube, and on the website, however you watch the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Big week this week for the James Madison Dukes. You saw the title. They're headed on the road to Oregon to take on the Ducks in what many think might be a lopsided game. But if you've watched the Dukes this year, you know they can play with anybody, and there's nobody better to maybe put the world on notice than Bob Chesney before he heads to UCLA. And I thought, what better way to preview the game than bring in Jack Fitzpatrick. Jack, thanks so much for stopping by to talk some ball. You follow the Dukes very closely. What is your thoughts headed into game week on Saturday?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm pumped up. It's been a fun week. It's been exciting. It's been a whirlwind between covering the Dukes with ESPN Richmond, what we've got going over there, and then the kind of fan account I run, JMU Sports News, accidentally hit virality. I don't even know if that's a word, but we hit a couple of nerves on the Oregon side. And I've had a couple banger tweets, but it's been an absolute blast. It's been fun to look at Oregon. It's been fun to be a fan of a team in the middle of the college football world, the college football discussion. And I can't wait for Saturday night to see JMU, I think shock the world. Maybe not shock the world with a win, but shock the world with competitiveness.
Going into the game, Oregon's multiple touchdown favorite. A lot of folks this week have talked about whether or not JMU should even be in the college football playoff picture. What are your thoughts on it before I give you mine?
I'm excited for the game. I think JMU should be in the game. I think the ACC kind of messed it up with how they ended up doing it. I think if we're poking fun at anyone, it should not be at the G5's expense, in my opinion. I think it should be at the ACC's expense for allowing Duke, a 5-loss team, to even be in the scenario. If Duke was in this game, right, if Duke was JMU, Duke would be a larger underdog than what JMU is. If JMU and Duke played on a neutral field tomorrow, JMU would be favorited in that game. And so that means JMU is a better team than Duke, and JMU can keep it closer with Oregon on Saturday night. JMU, a 21.5-point underdog, depending on what book you're using, could be as low down as 20.5. I've seen it as high as 22. But yeah, that 3-touchdown underdog. But that feels about right. Should be that type of game. But I think it'll be a competitive game in which JMU is able to keep it close, and then maybe a couple, late defensive scores or something like that allows Oregon to pull away. But JMU is exactly where it should be, and it should be an absolute blast of a game. Like, it should be a competitive football game. That's the perfect, and apologies for the pun here, but it should be the perfect nightcap to round one of the college football playoff.
Yeah, you think back to last year too. All of the first round games, none of them were competitive,
no,
entertaining, and I think putting JMU on a national stage is really exciting. For folks here in the Richmond area and just Virginia that have followed the team through their success at the FCS level and then their immediate success now at the FBS level. And I think I agree with you. I think they can be pretty competitive. I'm a little worried about the defensive side of the ball, holding the Ducks to points. I don't think JMU's going to have a hard time finding the end zone, though, with the success that they have had. Obviously, it was this week or last week, Barnett, won the Dudley. There's been a lot of excitement about him and what he's been able to do ever since he came back from injury. For maybe our viewers that aren't JMU fans, can you kind of, put a quick recap on this season, the ups and downs of the Dukes year?
Yeah, it was definitely started with a lot of downs and then a lot of ups. So you mentioned Alonzo Barnett tore his ACL November 30th, 2024. 9 months to the day, he's starting in week 1 against Weber State, JMU's FCS showdown to begin the season. And I'll be honest, the first couple of weeks for Alonzo Barnett, it wasn't that good. It was a little up and down. It was hot and cold. It left a lot to be desired. Partly, he's returning back from an ACL injury, so that's to account for it. Additionally, they were running this 2-quarterback system using Matthew Sluka of UNLV. He played a couple games last year. He was in the middle of a ton of fires, like last year when he decides to leave UNLV after a red-hot start because he wasn't getting paid the NIL money that he was guaranteed. But he was kind of splitting reps, Barnett and Sluka, early on in the season. You can attribute that kind of splitting of reps to why they lost the Louisville game in week 2 of the season. They backed that up with an underwhelming win against Liberty, a fine win against Georgia Southern, but then the bottom really fell out against Georgia State. It was a 14-7 win against a Georgia State squad that's one of the worst, not just in the Sun Belt, but one of the worst teams in the FBS. And I think a lot of fans started hitting the panic alarm. They were starting to worry about, is Barnett the guy? Can Barnett bring this team to the college football playoff? Is it time to turn to Sluka? Is it time to turn to Camden Coleman, the Richmond transfer, who's the third string quarterback at JMU this season? Is it time to make a big move? And then after that, Barnett really started to find a rhythm. It caps off with his fantastic performance against ODU, another fantastic performance against Texas State. JMU outgains App State by over 500 yards. And this team really started to find a rhythm. Last 3 weeks of the season, they had 2 good defenses, 2 of the better units in the G5. Played against Washington State. They won 24-20. And then Troy's defense is a formidable unit. They were able to push across, 24 offensive points. They finished with 31 because of a defensive score. But JMU's offense started to slow down a little bit when they played elite defenses at the G5 level. So that's something to keep an eye on going against an Oregon defense that is really good. But for the most part, I mean, JMU's offense really found a gear once the calendar flipped to really mid-October. And from there, that's really been no looking back. Barnett, a big reason why he won the Dudley Award, big reason why he won the Sun Belt Player of the Year Award, is because of his play October 11th on. He was so good. You could not deny him. He was throwing the ball well, running the ball well, and was accounting for multiple touchdowns each and every game.
The big question mark, and obviously probably the biggest storyline going into Saturday, is the obvious notion that Bob Chesney is doing something that I don't think we've ever seen. I don't know if it's ever been done. I mean, this is a historical moment that he's going to UCLA next year. He'll be the head coach of the Bruins, but I don't know if it was Chesney setting it up or UCLA or JMU begging or what the scenario was that kept him in Harrisonburg for a couple of more weeks. He's going to be coaching the Dukes on Saturday, something that Lane Kiffin's not doing with Ole Miss, for example. I think John Summerall coaching?
He is, and you're right. It is a historic moment that just is happening. It just speaks to the state of college football and the calendar that we're in, where these amazing G5 teams are now splitting time with their coaches because their coaches got poached away. Very weird, very weird. But Chesney will be coaching the game, and then immediately after, while the team's flying from Eugene back to Harrisonburg, I guess he'll board a plane that's going down to UCLA. Dean Kennedy, the offensive coordinator, will be in that plane with them going down to Los Angeles. I guess that's where they part. Maybe he comes back to Harrisonburg and helps pack up the house and then drives the U-Haul across the country. Not sure there, but he got the opportunity. I think it was a mix of JMU and Chesney wanting him to be there. I think Chesney was the main driver of all of this. You look back to how he left Holy Cross. He left that program in a really respectful way. He made sure that while he was taking over the JMU job, he was still attending end-of-year award banquets for some of the Holy Cross guys, made sure that he didn't burn any bridges there, and seems that he's doing the same thing. And now there's this interesting transition of power from Chesney to Napier. Billy Napier, the former Florida coach, hired as the next head coach for JMU. He's been on the sidelines, watching practice and watching the college football playoff prep, which feels kind of weird. It feels like you're watching your dad and your stepdad get along. And it's I don't know if this is what should necessarily be. I guess I'm okay with this. But it's been an interesting transition of power. And it's been, you're right, a historic thing now seeing Chesney do it, Summerall do it, and it speaks to the state of college football.
Yeah, I'm curious if Napier will be in Oregon, if he's going with
I was
the
wondering,
team.
I was wondering that too.
If he's in a box or on this, sidelines, not in the coach's area, or what the case will be with that. I think it says a lot about, Chesney wanting to finish what he started. Obviously, the players are still bought in and seem to be excited for the opportunity to take on a team like Oregon, on the road. the way the schedule works out too. It's the night game. It's a lot of eyes will be on it, and if it's close, I know there's going to be a lot of intrigue in the James Madison program, and it sets them up for success in the future. What are your thoughts, since we are speaking about Billy Napier? Your thoughts on that hire? It seemed like JMU got their guy. There was rumblings about Napier going to a lot of different programs, and from my point of view, I thought it was a home run hire for James Madison to get a guy that has had so much success in the Sun Belt before. I mean, he's one of the greatest Sun Belt coaches of all time if you just look at his record.
Yeah, he was a dog at Louisiana with the Raging Cajuns. He was dominant there. He out-recruited the Sun Belt in every which way. He then out-coached every single coach in the Sun Belt in every which way. Now, the Florida tenure, of course, has some stink on it, but let's face it, there's a large difference in having to coach in the Sun Belt than there is having to coach in the SEC. And so that doesn't worry me too much. It does stray a little bit away from the old way of hiring that Jeff Bourne, the old athletic director, had, which was, I'm going to identify the young coach, or maybe not even the young coach, but the coach who has developed programs. He's won at untraditional spots. You look at Curt Cignetti, he won at Division II IUP, rebuilt that program, won at Elon. No one wins at Elon. Elon doesn't even know he can win football games, and Cignetti was having them as perennial CAA contenders. And then Chesney, of course, winning at Salve Regina, winning at Assumption, winning at Holy Cross, all places you don't typically win, and he won in big ways. And that was their blueprint. This from Matt Rohn, the current athletic director, strays a little bit away from that, but it still has the makings to be a fantastic hire because of what you said. The success at Louisiana is something you just can't ignore. Sure, the Florida tenure was a little topsy-turvy. At times, it felt like he got into his own way by not deciding to hire an offensive coordinator that could call plays, but he's hired an offensive coordinator that, according to reports, according to himself, will be calling plays. He learned from his mistakes, and he'll be making that adjustment in Harrisonburg. And the kind of cherry on top that I think through it, and it kind of depends on who you ask, depending JMU coverage, I think he'll be here for 3 to 5 years, which is a long time in JMU world. Mike Houston back in the FCS days was not here that long. Everett Withers, who joined the program in 2014 and kind of helped push them to this era almost. You could argue Withers is one of the more impactful coaches in JMU history, and not to go on a whole historical bend of it all, but Withers was fantastic. He left after only 2 years. You see Chesney leaving after 2 years. I think Napier has the potential to stay for 3 to 5, considering Florida's buyout was $10.5 million straight up front, right to him. They cut him a check, and he said, thank you very much, put it in his back pocket, went on his merry way. He was sipping Mai Tais, I imagine, down in Cancun for about a month, got a little antsy, decided to come back, and now Florida will continue paying him around $2.5 million every year until 2029. Shout out Billy Napier's agent for not including offset language into it. So like whatever JMU's paying him, it doesn't matter because Florida's still going to be paying him $2.5 million.
Speaking of coaching changes and stuff, what are your thoughts on the fit Bob Chesney to UCLA? That kind of surprised me. I thought maybe he'd stay on this side of the country. UCLA kind of feels like it's got some, demons. I don't know if demons in the closet is the right phrase to use, but they are having some issues with funding, it sounds like, and a lot of problems with competing in a competitive conference like the Big Ten. But Chesney, it seems like if anybody's going to put it the right way, somebody with Bob Chesney's attitude might be the right fit for UCLA. But it kind of surprised me that Bob Chesney wanted to go out west.
Yeah, considering he's like a born and bred East Coaster, right? Yeah. He's from Pennsylvania. He got his coaching start at Johns Hopkins and then was up in the Northeast corridor for so long. He interviewed for the Syracuse job. He was linked to the Boston College job for so long. He was kind of the media's head coach in waiting over there at Boston College. Comes down to JMU. There were rumblings that, maybe if the Maryland head coach, I'm blanking on his name for a second, but if he's let go, he's the natural fit at Maryland, all of this stuff. And then to go West Coast where he has no true connections was a bit of a head scratcher. But in the year 2025, right, he's going to have to build that program through the transfer portal. So it doesn't matter where your quote unquote pipelines are, the pipelines that you develop in NCAA football, like the video game, you're trying to make sure you got that pipeline to Texas so you get the best players. doesn't matter as much in the real world with the transfer portal, I guess. He's got a really, really good Rolodex of coaches that kind of he's got on speed dial. You saw that with Colin Hitchler, the defensive coordinator who came to JMU after Lyle Hemphill left to go to Texas A&M. Hitchler and him were connected at Salve Regina, I believe, the Division III school. Like, he's just got his tentacles everywhere, and I mean that in a positive way. I know tentacles almost has a negative connotation, but it's an interesting fit. I think he'll be successful for the one reason. We were saying the same stuff about Indiana and Kurt Signetti. Oh, it's a basketball school. Oh, they've never had success. Oh, this, oh, that. Well, it turns out Mark Cuban opened up his checkbook, gave Kurt Signetti a blank check and said, do whatever you want, just make sure we win. And Kurt Signetti, a born winner, did just that. According to reports, UCLA, it's been topsy-turvy. They have had issues with funding in the past, but according to the athletic director, according to sources around the situation, UCLA showed Bob Chesney a ton of buy-in. They showed that they were ready to invest heavily into their football program starting this next year. Bob Myers, the former GM of the Warriors, he was involved with the Commanders' rebuild last year when they drafted Jaden Daniels. He's a UCLA alum who's going to be heavily involved with all of this as well, helping Chesney, according to some reports. So I think they'll have the NIL buy-in. I think they'll have the funding. I think they're serious about winning, and I don't think Chesney takes the job if they're not. And, oh, by the way, it's a $6 million raise per year, so that doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, well, he was going to go somewhere. It was just a matter of where, because everybody wanted him. I was honestly surprised that Penn State didn't throw a bag at him as well with the success that he's currently having.
Yeah.
You mentioned Kurt Signetti. As a JMU alum, as a JMU follower, do you have a connection with Indiana still, or now that a year has gone by, maybe there's not quite as many players from the JMU roster over at Indiana, or is it like Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers and all the Patriot fans started pulling for the Bucs?
It's a little bit like that. I'm still pulling for, like, that weekend, right? JMU wins the Sun Belt title Friday night in frigid conditions. I was out there and it was the coldest I've ever been. That was freezing cold. They win the title on Friday. Saturday night, UVA loses, which was a nice little cherry on top of it all, making JMU eligible for the college football playoff. And then that same time, roughly the same time, Indiana wins the Big Ten. And you're seeing Signetti, who was at JMU for 5 years. He's celebrating. Aiden Fisher is celebrating. He's a guy out of Riverbend, right up 95 a little bit in Fredericksburg. He was a key contributor at JMU, I think his first 2 years there. D'Angelo Pons was a standout player at JMU his freshman year. Tyreek Tucker, a defensive tackle who transferred out and followed Signetti to Indiana. He was there. And Elijah Surratt was another JMU one-year guy, made a huge impact, but he's a huge part of their passing game, a big reason why Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman. But it's cool to kind of see some of the guys. You're right, it's not as many as it was. Like, it was, I think, 13 players when he left last year. Probably down to about 5-ish this year, but it's cool seeing them. It's cool to see them celebrate. And selfishly, I hope that Trent Hendrick, the JMU linebacker, the receivers from JMU, gave up some calls to some of their old friends living in Bloomington now and said, how the heck did you guys go to Autzen Stadium and win that football game? Give us all of your secrets. I hope there was a little of sharing of information between the two.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy to win on the road at Oregon. The environment's incredible, and obviously the trip is tough too. I think I left today, I believe, to make it out to Oregon. So a lot of excitement for Saturday night. What about the college football playoffs in general? Do you have a favorite? Personally, I think Ohio State is going to repeat despite that Big Ten championship game a couple of weeks ago.
I think one of the teams in red. I think that covers my bases, right? Texas Tech, Georgia, Ohio State, Indiana. But in all seriousness, I'm going to cop out a little bit and say Indiana or Ohio State. Okay. I think it's going to be one of the two. On a neutral field, I think Ohio State gets the slight edge over Indiana, so I'll give the edge to Ohio State to win it all again. They're just so well coached, it seems. They've got so many dogs on the roster. Indiana does too, but for them, it's almost like, I want you to prove it. I need you to prove me wrong so I accept that you're good. Because there also is a little bit of a part of me that's like, well, I saw what happened last year. I saw you not look that competitive in the college football playoff after a dominant season. So you're going to have to prove me wrong in order to get my full respect. But at the same time, what they did through the regular season, what they did in the Big Ten championship game to take down Ohio State on a neutral field, it's like, that's hard to ignore. Really hard to ignore. So I like one of them.
Sold me. The game against Ohio State, I mean, I was in the same boat. It's like, yeah, are you really all that good? And then when they beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, it's like, wow. Like, I mean, that's probably what won the Heisman for Mendoza. And, but to be honest with you, to talk about the playoffs a little bit, am I the only one I'm more excited for these first round games than watching any of the top 4 play? Like, I'm not all that pumped up to watch the top 4 team plays, but these first round matchups, like the Miami game, Texas A&M, like there's some of these matchups I'm way more excited about than, going and watching Ohio State play. It's cool to see these new teams on the center stage.
I'm right there with you, because I also think, and this is no slight to teams 5 through 12, the top 4 just seem like this is a year where I'm like, all right, if you put those top 4 in the college football playoff the old way they did it, I'd have no complaints. Like, they are just a clear-cut better than everyone. Where this round, I'm like, I don't frickin' know who's going to win, Alabama or Oklahoma. I don't know who's going to win, Miami or Texas A&M. Your guess is as good as mine. And then, oh, by the way, we get 2 feel-good stories with Tulane, Ole Miss, JMU, Oregon. And both of those games, Tulane, Ole Miss, it's the second time around. Tulane should be more competitive. I think JMU will be competitive in the game. It should be fun games there. And then you've probably got 2 games that will be decided on a last-second field goal or a last-second play of some sort with the other 2 games. And then it's an invitational to get waxed next week. That's how I'm looking at it.
I think you're absolutely right. I'm really excited about that Ole Miss Tulane game, obviously, with the added input of Lane Kiffin not being there. I think Ole Miss, probably roll over Tulane if he's still there, and all of this didn't happen. But now I think we have an opportunity to see a group of 5 team maybe upset somebody. And like you mentioned, I think JMU can put some points up. I'm just kind of worried about them stopping that Oregon offense. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm worried about all of it. Like, you're right. The offense, it's funny because I've been talking with some people, and offensively, when they play good defenses, they've struggled a little bit. But I asked a friend of mine, I said, what if we just throw out the Troy game, right? What if the Troy game never happened? Because that's leaving a lot of bad tastes in JMU fans' mouths. The game before that, I believe they beat Coastal Carolina 59-10. And it's like, what if that was the last data point we had? How much more confident would you be going into this game? And everyone's like, well, I would probably be a little bit more confident. That Troy game left a little sour taste in my mouth. And it's like, all right, then in that case, I've got a little bit more faith in the offense. They're going to have their hands full against a solid defense. But defensively, JMU has the best defensive group in the G5. They are extremely well coached. They have talent across the board. They have arguably the best edge rusher in the G5 in redshirt freshman Sahir West. He had 3 sacks, 5.5 TFLs in the Sun Belt Championship game, 10 tackles in total. He was a wrecking ball off of the edge. Granted, Oregon's offensive line is much, much, much better, and I cannot emphasize that enough, than Oregon. Like, Oregon's offensive line is much better than Troy's offensive line. So it's going to be more difficult for him. But I think JMU's got the guys defensively to make a couple of key plays. If JMU's going to win this game, though, I think it's going to be maybe a 21, 28-point outing from the Duke's offense. I think they're going to have to muck it up a little bit. Hope Dante Moore and the Oregon offense makes a couple of mistakes because, like you said, they're not going to be able to kind of keep them under wraps for 60 minutes. Oregon's going to get theirs. You've got to force them into a couple of mistakes, capitalize getting points off of turnovers, and try to keep Oregon's offense on the sideline more than they are on the field.
Perfect. Jack, thanks so much for stopping by. We'll be tuned in on Saturday night. Looking forward to that one. If our viewers want to hear more from you, how can they follow along with what you got going on?
We've got everything going on every weekday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. on Fitz the Bill on ESPN Richmond. We've also got everything that we're doing JMU-wise on JMUSportsNews.com. We're also on social media, JMU Sports News. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, you name it. We're probably there. Just type in JMU Sports News, and you can follow along everything I'm doing at FITZ all the way. That's Fitz all the way.
Perfect. Jack, thanks so much for tuning in and joining the Nightcap once again. A reoccurring guest now on the Nightcap. All right, Jack, have a good one. Thanks.
Thank you so much, man. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you soon.